What's up, my sales hustlers? This is Jack Nico and Jack Fox back with No Big Deal, the raw, unfiltered podcast where top sales pros are going to reveal their strategies that close their biggest deals so you can learn from and use it in your day-to-day. Now, with Jon Azodo, he's going to take us behind the scenes of his massive deal at Aircall. From strategic whale hunting to masterful champion coaching, you'll discover how Jon transformed a monthly check-in into a career-defining win. Jon is also a massive fan of No Big Deal, so we've got a fan on sharing his tips. Jon, as well, actually bought the No Big Deal Manifesto, so you're going to hear how he used the guide that me and Jack wrote last year in this deal to win it. Get ready for game-changing insights and internal stakeholder management, the power of patience, and how to become the quarterback of your biggest deals. This is No Big Deal. Tune in, cue the intro.
Jon, one of the things that is like everybody is challenged with at the moment is like getting good opportunities into their pipeline. So not run rate opportunities, actual big meaty opportunities that are going to get us sort of like to and above and like really over exceed our number. Obviously, this is one of those deals. So tell us, how did you get, and was there anything unique about how you got a big deal into your pipeline in this instance?
For sure. So yeah, I think the team had just moved to like the ABM model, but also more importantly, one-to-one pods. So every AE was paired with a BDR, which meant that you could be a bit more strategic about the accounts that you wanted to pick. We also didn't get a book. Like, you pick your own book, you define which accounts you want to go for. Luckily, I had a really tenured BDR, but I was quite new to the business. So he was very familiar with like where Aircall wins and where we don't. So in the account selection, he played like a really important role. So I have to be sure to give him his props. But effectively in the account list, we called it whale hunting, is the session that we kind of put in the calendar. And it was basically looking for big accounts where there was a strategic opportunity. They could either start small and grow really large, or they could even start with like a really big bang and kick off really quickly. So that was like the how we put together the account list. And then in terms of this opportunity, we just got really lucky. So I know you mention this all the time, Fox, about how there's an element of luck with every one of these deals. You have to get lucky. And so with this particular account, I managed to get an intro from another very happy customer who'd mentioned that they'd really enjoyed working with me and they saw an opportunity for Aircall to be valuable in that new business, but they weren't sure whether or not it was going to be the right fit. They would be happy to make the intro, but then the ball was in my court at that point. So that's kind of the genesis of that. But the account was already selected. It was already on my hit list. It just paid dividends that it kind of kicked off with a referral.
And when you do that whale hunting session with your BDR, let's say I'm literally going to go and do that now. You just said that. Next Tuesday, we have our PG, I was just showing you my calendar, we do PG Day Tuesdays. The first 2 hours of that, I'm going to get my BDR in a room and do whale hunting. What did you do? Did you like map in Salesforce, like previous big customers at Aircall, try and work out what the common, talk me through how that process works and basically how do I do that?
For sure. I think every AE wants to go to the first place they go is close one. Like, where are we winning? We want more lookalike customers. I did the same thing. There were a lot of lookalike customers, but I think, again, I had to think outside of the box in that this is a strategic play. So I had to think about, where am I going to find the right type of customer where we weren't the right fit? So I actually looked at lost opportunities that were kind of far down the sales process. So I guess the secret to this particular deal is that they had evaluated Aircall before, twice, over 5 years, and decided not to go ahead because they didn't feel that the product was like ready. But they always liked the product. They always liked the idea, but they were super fast scaling. And so they really wanted to make sure that, the product they're going to buy into is ready day one, but also is going to grow over time. So when we were whale hunting, that's what we're looking for. We want to speak to someone who we don't necessarily have to reintroduce ourselves. It's more a case of, now's the right time to speak to us because, we've made this improvement, or we've added this new member of our senior team. Like, now's the right time to have this chat. Yeah. So that's how we built that.
So you're filtering in Salesforce, close lost at like scope or negotiation or something.
Yeah.
listing all of those and being like, okay, what was the problem at the end of the deal that isn't a problem today?
For sure. And then also filtering by technical risk. So paired to every one of these strategic deals is an SE. SEs also have to deliver a forecast. They often they deliver their forecast based on the technicals, and they have to deliver like a confidence level. And so there were these accounts typically had closed loss opportunities far in the process where the SE had greenlit the deal. So it was a case of, oh, we know we're going to be the right fit technically. It just probably wasn't the right time. So those are the best accounts for us to be going after.
And in this then research on top of it, clearly the clever way that you got back in was through a customer reference. How did you then find that avenue?
Yeah, so I think my VP would kill us all if we don't ask for references after every call. Every close one opportunity. Luckily, he used to be an AE, so we can actually listen to what he has to say. But whenever he claims that back in his selling days, it was like sort of the normal process was to ask a referral. Now that I've helped you out, who else in your network do you think could benefit from this solution? So that kind of was ingrained in me from onboarding. But I think when you get a referral, it's hard to know what to do with it, and it's also hard to know who's the right person. So I think for a large transformation, you're going to get an introduction to someone in the business, but it's not going to be the CEO. And even if it is the CEO, more often than not with these large transformations, the CEO doesn't make any decision without group consensus. So if I had a referral into sort of above the line, it was going to be useful. But if it was below the line, it was also going to be a bit tricky. There was always going to be some navigating needed.
Quick one from me. If you like what you're hearing today, head over to nobigdeal.club. You'll find a whole host of other episodes on there. You'll also find the No Big Deal Manifesto. The manifesto is a breakdown of every lesson we've learned from all the guests we've had on the show. It'll give you tips, tricks, frameworks, guidelines, templates on how to open, manage, and close your biggest deal. Check it out. And hey, introduce this podcast to your friends. It's the easiest way for us to grow and get more great guests on for future episodes. Back to the episode. Let's say, for example, it's a good fit, and you've got a referral. If I'm the AE, do I reference the old opportunity and say this was the problem? Is that still a problem? Something you want to discuss? Are you trying to kick off where you left off, or are you trying to like rebuild it from scratch? I'm assuming it's the former.
It's definitely, yeah. You definitely want to kick off where you left off, but then you also want to have a new point of view.
Yeah,
so you have to assume that, right? Like you have to assume that they came to you with some problem, or you went to them and discovered they had some problem, but the problem either wasn't pressing enough to solve right now, or not painful enough to solve right now. And so you have to come in with a new point of view. So even in this case where I was given the referral, strangely, the referral contact was someone who was external in the business, but was going to have high visibility or visibility in the right rooms. So I knew that I needed to come prepared to that call. More so in the case of like, what do I want to come out of it? So I want a referral from that referee. That's my ultimate goal. Is I want this person to intro me to other people in the business, and so I need to come with something new. And also, more importantly, sort of the person that my contact referred me to was also very new in the business. So I knew that if she's going to clear the path for me, I had to deliver value. I had to bring her something new that she could take up to execs and say, hey guys, have we looked at this? Is this still a problem? This is a new way that they're solving it. I also have a line to someone in the right, like who's selling a solution that can actually solve our problem.
Okay, so this is something that I always hesitate with. When someone's new in a business, I am not very good at empowering them. I often feel a little bit hesitant that they are maybe just a bit cagey, that they haven't done like their tenure yet to build a consensus of people who might follow them on this journey to try and create change. What did you do to overcome that? Was this an element of luck that she was like quite a powerful influencer, or was it like you built her up in a way that made her feel powerful? How do you help somebody who's new to help them make change?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think in this case, we had to take it really slow. So I knew the ask. I knew I wanted an intro. I knew I wanted her to kind of put me in front of the teams that Aircall's going to be useful for. But I also knew that she probably doesn't know who those people are. And even if she asked them to join a meeting, they'd probably say no. And so I think it was a long game. The long and the short of it was we had 15-minute syncs in the calendar every month for 4 months before she made a single intro. And like it was a case of every week I'm trying to bring some new industry insight. This is what I heard is happening. And it would start, the conversations would start that way, and then they'd end with, what she's getting up to that weekend, what her kids are doing. Like, we built a rapport, but she felt comfortable coming to those calls every week. And also there was always a little bit of a takeaway. So every week, like every month, it's I've seen that this new product is being launched. How's it going? And then again, feeding back into Aircall being a phone solution. How is that impacting the phones? This particular problem that you're experiencing, in terms of like sort of your customer support, how is this new product launch affected by those problems in the support team? So just kind of coming back to it. So every month she's thinking about new ways that this is an issue. So by the time it came for me to be confident enough to say, hey, we've been talking for months now, are you okay to make an intro? I know who I want you to introduce me to. She'd already knew that I was waiting for that intro. She was like, not only do you need to speak to this guy, but you actually need to speak to her. You need to speak to this person. I think we actually need a call with these individuals. And so she was kind of integral in that process, but also her coaching me and me coaching her as to like what's valuable about our solution, and her telling me about the dynamics internally in the business. I think that was kind of the process.
Based on this opportunity, what are the signals then on this experience that you would also look for these types of scenarios in other opportunities?
It's going to be that give get. So I think everybody sees the posts on LinkedIn about it needs to be a give get in every scenario. You're constantly negotiating. But I think when you're coaching your champion, or when you're figuring out whether or not your champion is a champion, it's always going to be about those gets. Like, how open are they to the idea of giving something back to you when they ask for something? Also, can you test them with small things? Like, I think an introduction from a stranger to the most senior execs in the business is an incredible ask, even if you are selling something that's going to be super valuable. So you do have to build a little bit of credibility there, but there are small things you can ask for. I'd like to, typically with telephony, there's always an existing solution. So we ask, hey, what are you using today? But then there are more details around that. So, if you're on the phones, you have volumes. How many calls are your teams making? Where are those calls going to? Where are you seeing bottlenecks? If those things that they wouldn't typically know on that call, that they have to go away and almost do a little bit of homework, that's a signal. If they come back to you and they say to you, yeah, I did what you asked, and then I guess here's what I want in return, then you're in a conversation. You're already negotiating.
Reminds me of Jack Libby Jones's episode. If you can also remember that, John, as a listener of No Big Deal. Be like, this is tips for sales reps. Come prepared with questions that potentially that stakeholder is not going to know the answer to. And it will allow you to multi-thread into people that can get you the answers to the challenges that they're hoping to alleviate. And it's a really good technique.
I've actually had a deal review with Will today, and we're going through an on-site meeting I've got next week. And like, he's like, you need to ask this question about the measurement, like how they're going to track that. And I was like, oh, this stakeholder won't know that. Will was like, yeah, exactly. I was like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, we're going to get, he was like, that's how you get the intro. He was like, we need to go wider. I was like, okay, I didn't even think about that. It's such a good point. John, how do you manage your manager when they're saying, John, you've been speaking to this person every day, every week for 15 minutes without it's going anywhere? So two things. How do you manage your manager to keep them like
what are
patient?
You doing?
Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah. Keep them patient. But then also, how are you keeping one eye on like whale hunting and also hitting target in that instance? Because that's what your manager wants you to do. They want you to hit target, but they also want you to progress that whale. And you're sitting there trying to do both things at the same time, keep everybody happy. How do you do that?
I'll be honest, initially I wasn't hitting target and my manager wasn't happy. And we had one of those conversations where it's like, I get that you wanna hunt whales, and I think I'm gonna give you the autonomy to be able to do that, but you've got to give something to me. So it's nice that you have these monthly syncs, but what are you doing every day? Like, where are the where are the deals you're closing every week? And that was the give. Like, I think that was the thing I knew I had to promise, and in return, it was like, okay, after those syncs, I had a sync with my manager straight afterwards. This is what we discussed. This is what I asked for. In the next session, what do you think would be reasonable to ask for next? And that was kind of the cadence for those, I guess, for the main bulk of it. So those 4 months, that was kind of the rhythm. And then it became like an internal thing. Like we'd have that monthly review where it's specifically on this opportunity. We were like, okay, here's the update. Here's what we're doing. And it built into the long-term rhythm of this deal. So towards the end, like skipping towards the end in terms of the closing, we eventually got to a place where we were offering like weekly updates. So I used to give my manager weekly updates. This is what we discussed. This is where we're going. These are the asks I made. This is what we're expecting. What asks do you think I should put forward in the next meeting? And so that was the weekly update that went to my manager. Eventually, as you know, these big deals require lots of internal stakeholders. So I actually had to put together a weekly update for not just my manager, but our director and then our VP, and then also other stakeholders like our chief legal officer, our head of security, our head of infosec. It's the same. They were all in this really big Slack channel with a weekly update, so they always knew what was going on. So that's kind of that was the way to manage up. It doesn't mean that you don't get the pressure. I still had all of the sessions where it's when is this closing, when is this coming in, but like being proactive about that internal management. I almost feel like you almost have to manage your manager as much as you would a prospect or you would a deal. It's the exact same way.
Did you have like a pro forma, like a template of how you send that update round? Like the context, what changed, what needs to change, blockers, something like that?
I did, yeah.
Can you send it? Can you send it to me?
Yeah, of course I can.
Send me the template. Take the rest of it out.
Do you remember? I think what we heard from Ollie was like was like the traffic light system.
Yeah,
on the
so like
internal
making sure you've
update.
got like red. This needs to be done at you. Green. This is done. Thank you.
Do you know how I've actually taken that and used it into a different part of my sales process? When I'm delivering like decision criteria, or I've renamed it to testing criteria. I feel like it resonates with the buyers that I have better at the moment. So I'm like, it's what you're testing really on your proof of concept. I have it in a table format on a slide. On the left-hand side will be the overarching description. So let's say generically, it could be like the AI features of your platform, which probably everyone has now, right? And on the right-hand side is just like a high-level description of like specifically what they're going to test, like, or what would regard as success. And I traffic light the decision criteria with my buyers at the beginning of every weekly check-in on the proof of concept. So I say, okay, we're going to start at the top, like, let's go, and I'll give it like 6. You can basically be one of 6. Dark red 1 is like, this is really not doing well, all the way to like a lighter red, a lighter orange. And it really helps to then formulate when you go and take it to the senior stakeholders that sign it off, being like, we've done this proof of concept. This is where we did really well. And it lets you, I've seen buyers have the slide on a Zoom call, like actively talk like, this is so good. This is how different it is here. And this is here. I don't know. That I just thought of that as like quite a nice way of traffic.
Is that in like a G Sheets or like a Word doc or something?
It's in a Google slide that I have a template of. And another way of doing it, and I could share this with you afterwards as generically, is I actually give it as a prescriptive thing per industry. So let's say I've got one for the 3 major, we work with like 20 industries at Vocada, but like the 3 major ones, I go, oh, by the way, generally when we go in proof of concepts, this is the testing criteria. And it's the 6 ones where we win.
Yeah, sort of.
And I'm like, you probably don't need that one. We can add in this one. I know you spoke about this. We'll add in this one. So it's like a really nice way of presenting it to the client, and then always going to track it through the traffic light system. Anyway, I rambled on a bit there, but hopefully someone found that valuable.
Yeah, send me that as well, please.
yeah, cool.
I'd like that actually.
Definitely, I'll send it to you, both of you. I actually want to go back to the deal, and something that we talked about, like after you got this referral, Jon, is like how your champion ended up coaching you Tell us more about that experience and the result of it.
For sure. I got really lucky, I think, with a really nice champion. So not that we don't love all of our customers, but like I feel like it was a real pleasure speaking to her every month. Like I actually look forward to hearing about what she got up to over the last 30 days. So I think that was the first piece. But I think also it always felt like she was motivated in the right way. It felt like, she wanted to help me, and in turn, I wanted to help her. I wanted her to show up to those management meetings and look good. And so I always tried to show up with something new, and in turn, she would give it back to me. So I remember one month she showed up to the call and we were talking about the weather or whatever. And then out of nowhere, she explains to me the procurement process. And she's like, hey, just to let you know, we've just bought something and this is the steps that we took to buy. And like, when I'm telling you, it's not just, it's everything, not just, it has to go to security or somebody needs to see some certificate. It was like, maybe I shouldn't say, but she shared like 18 steps, 3 different teams. This is how it works. This is in real time. It's happening right now. So this is exactly how it works. And I found out that this is how we buy everything. So this is the format that you need to prepare your summary in. Otherwise, it's just not going to move. And I remember walking away thinking, whoa, like, again, this is not something I could have possibly asked for. Well, I mean, I guess I could have asked, but she probably would have said no. But like, I don't think I would have thought to ask for that. And I think sometimes reps ask those questions. What is your process in the initial discovery? And then we're a bit disheartened when they play their cards close to their chest. But I think she shared that willingly. And then also in the next catch up, I brought the summary. I was like, okay, well, you told me this is how you guys buy things. This is exactly, I've followed it to the T. Help me fill out this doc. Like, help me spot where the errors are. And again, it's an ask. She gave it back to me and was like, yeah, I'd remove this. They don't care about this. You should add this. And so it was like, oh, wow. Like, these are the pieces that you need. Also helping me know who that needs to go to. So in the initial stages with my BDR, when we had that well hunting session, we do, obviously we have an account mapping session. So we know who the key contacts are in the business. It's very funny that the ultimate decision maker on this deal was one of the first contacts we called, who told us, nope, we're not interested. We don't want it. It's not for right now.
Hey, mate, me again.
Obviously we've been laughing about it for weeks at this point, but we remember. And also, more importantly, he mentioned it on a call the other day and was like, yeah, do you remember when you called me and I said we weren't buying this thing and now we're trying to implement it? It's insane to think of, but like, when we initially mapped those contacts, it made sense to take that to my referral and be like, this is how I think your organization is shaped. These are the power players I think are at the table. Tell me where I'm wrong. And initially, I think she was a bit hesitant to share, but eventually it was like bringing it up slowly. She came back to me, I think maybe in our 4th or our 5th meeting. These are the people that you need to win, and this is what they care about. Like, feel free to prospect into those accounts. Feel free to prospect into those contacts. Tell them you're speaking to me, because I guess she was building credibility also.
Yeah,
so,
I was going to say, what's the get for her there? Like, why would she? I always find it hard to get stakeholder maps from customers because I don't know why they would give it to me.
John, she must have desperately wanted to buy Aircall.
100%. So the company she came from bought Aircall, and they almost revolutionized their support team.
Do you know what I'm thinking is, like, on those calls that you were having, the monthly check-ins and sort of like the delivering insights, industry insights, I actually think maybe you're being modest or something, or maybe you're just not explaining it now. I actually think you were doing way more you were impressing upon her way more, like your ability and capabilities as a person to help her make change than perhaps you're letting on. I think that is something that goes unsaid in most sales cycles, is like the element of credibility that you deliver across a Zoom call frequently. Like, you build up to a position where someone's like, yeah, I trust this person, irrespective of whether they work with me or for me or for a different company. I think that's probably something that happened here. And I think, I don't know, it comes with experience. I don't do that regularly. I mean, it happens every now and then. And when you do it, you're like, this deal's on a bullet train now.
You need to come. I think it's all in preparation as well with these calls. Like, come prepared. Come look like you know what you're talking about. Not look like you've just been jumped from call to call and look a bit nervous and you're scrabbling around for water. Like, come prepared. Deck well presented. Tell the buyer, this is the agenda we're going to follow in this call because this is how you generally buy this software, and it adds so much credibility. And you can imagine from the buyer's perspective, you're like, well, I trust this guy because he obviously knows, or he or she obviously knows what they're doing. They've done this before.
100%.
I think leveraging what we'd done before was the most important part, because obviously this deal came about right at the beginning of my time at Aircall. So I think the beauty of the conversations we were having every month, I feel like every month I was getting, one, more confident at selling the product, but two, more confident about the industry. So as I'm learning, I'm sharing every learning with her. Like, I'm interested in telephony. I'm interested in cold calling. I'm interested in understanding how you get more out of your phone solution. So I'm excited when I show up to those calls. I'm prepared in a way that she obviously couldn't be. And I'm looking at the problem in a different angle. I would also say probably it benefited me that the deal was underpiped in my pipeline. So there was probably a bit less pressure from management. So like it didn't feel like I needed to like push to her every week. Like it didn't feel like I needed to push to them every month. When are you going to buy? When are you going to buy? Because I knew that once the light bulb moment kicked in, like once that switch kicked in, we'd move from that push to pull motion. Like it almost happened overnight. She made
Jon, what was the switch?
They'd experienced, obviously with telephony, you always have a phone solution in place. So they'd had a negative experience with their existing provider. And I think it was like a light bulb moment for her, but also it just made it, they had a crisis meeting. And at the end of the meeting, the solution was, we need to change. She already knew exactly what we would be changing to. She just needed to tick box effectively the criteria. So our existing solution can do these 10 things. These are the 10 things you need to be able to do. And then these are the 4 or 5 other things that our team care about. And it'd be nice if you could do 3 or 4 of those things. And so I think that moment, it was probably like a system-wide outage that affected them, that they were like, this also has a monetary value, this problem. Let's take this more seriously. And almost, it was like a night and day difference. Like the following week, she made like 4 intros. We sat down, we had a demo. Before the demo, she was like, hey, let's have a prep call. And I'm going to prep you on everyone who's in the room. This is how you need to speak to the problem. And then after the call was complete, she did a handoff. So ultimately, she wasn't the key stakeholder in this scenario. She was just a true champion of the product. She made a handoff and was like, this is who you need to be speaking to. He eventually was like, oh, yeah, I remember saying no to you guys. I'm familiar with you. Like, I'm happy to be back at the table. This is a real problem for us. We need to solve this today. And then I built up that same cadence. So instead of monthly syncs, it was bi-weekly syncs. And I let him know that it's not uncommon. Like, I've been speaking to your colleague for the last 6 months. We have a monthly check-in in the calendar. With you, we're going to need to move a bit faster. If we want to get this in place, we're going to put this in the calendar for every 2 weeks. And then maybe towards the end, when it feels like you want to go ahead, we'll move to weekly syncs. We eventually moved to Slack. We're in a Slack channel, so we now speak almost all the time. But like the cadence was already there and the framework was already in place. So it was really just more of the same.
One thing as well, Jon, did you have how long was the critical event of the contract end date from when this potential tipping point happened?
That's a good question.
And did you have a good critical event with the contract end date of the competitor? No.
So they were in a monthly rolling contract. So they could have left at any point. They had no incentive to. That was
Perfect.
And that's often the case with sort of Aircall, is there's always a critical event. There's always a compelling event that we're looking for. But more often with these strategic opportunities, there isn't one. Like, you have to build that case over time. You have to encourage them to think outside of the box. And you also have to look for, like, almost see the future. Where do they want to go, and how does their existing solution stop them from getting there? That's one layer of the conversation. And then the next bit is like, oh, okay, if you're telling me that this solution isn't going to help me get there, how are you going to do it? You already have the answer to that question. So it felt like that was where we were going. when we were working with them.
When you went from that push to pull motion externally, and obviously you said you underpiped the opportunity internally, so
Yeah,
I'm assuming you started to actually like fess up a bit about the
I
value of
did.
what you thought it was. How
Oh
did you
yeah, it's
then?
not $1,000.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been
Yeah.
speaking to them for 6 months. Um,
Mhm.
how did you? Because obviously that's when you built in like these weekly check-ins in the Slack channel
Yeah.
with the legal team or the rest of the other stakeholders.
Yep.
How did you go from a push to pull motion internally as well? What kind of gears do you switch? How do you start like leveraging people? Are you like? I'm very fascinated by how we communicate internally as well as how we communicate externally. So I'm just interested in what you did internally there as well.
For sure. I think I have to, before I start tooting my own horn, I have to credit my director, James. Like, I think he made it clear once I'd been honest and said, hey, there's a large opportunity I'm working on and this has real potential, of taking me very seriously, one, but then also clearing the path. So I think I let him know, again, with those updates, what was going on. But then also once we were in closing motion, what I would need. He sat down with me. We had like a 10-minute chat, and he made it clear to me that I'm the quarterback of this deal. My job is to know exactly who I need and what I need from each person, and he will make it happen for me. And I think that was like so essential, and it would be my advice to any rep that wants to make it happen. Like you're not going to be able to make it happen by yourself. It is a team game that you're going to have to play, but you're the captain of that team. You need to tell everyone where to go. And so there was a moment internally we had where I explained to him where we are, and he mentioned, one, we need a channel, and we need to involve teams as and when, and we also need to preempt their involvement. So again, on the legal side, we know that deals die and they end up in this legal hell where, procurement and legal go backwards and forwards. He mentioned that this is something you need to prepare our legal team. So I sat down with our chief legal counsel, and they was like, I'm going to need your time in a month. I'm going to need at least like 2 or 3 hours of your time in a month's time. These are the things that they're going to want dealt with. These are the parts of our contract that they've already indicated might not be interesting to them or might need a little bit of work. You need to be prepared for when I call on you. They appreciated the heads up because they had obviously lots of deals in flight, and so it meant that they could prep ahead of time. They were offering calls, like tell the customer we're happy to jump on a call. We've already allocated the time this week to look at red lines. We're already ready to kind of build out the SLA or adjust the SLA if need be. And so there was a moment internally that we all had to just kind of sit down and accept that this is a deal that we're working to make happen. And then like it was kind of on me, but mostly like using my director as like my mouthpiece to say, I need this team ready. I need this document prepared. I need these individuals on this call. And full credit to him, he made it happen.
I think, John, something I want to touch on before we wrap up is you actually bought the Big Deal Manifesto, the guide that Jack and I wrote
I did.
halfway through this deal. And you said it had like a massive positive impact on helping you to close, like a transformative deal on this occasion. Could you tell us more about which parts of the guide like you found particularly effective when deploying it in your sales process?
100%. I think it's the first chapter actually is around having having the right mindset for closing these big deals. And I think reading that was immediately like it kind of hit me. It was like a shot to the brain in that you do have to think about these things differently. And it requires like a deep resolve. Like you've got to be confident that you're really going to make this happen. And so that was it just opening that kind of helped me understand I'm going to have to think about this problem differently. I think there was other pieces about relationships and stakeholder mapping. I think there's a piece in the manifesto where it mentions relationships are not just nice to have, like they're truly the most valuable currency. This deal was truly sold on the relationship, on the rapport that I built with my champion, and then their ability to build champions in the business, their ability to build relationships, and then in turn to leverage those relationships. That was externally, but then also internally. Like I was working with teams I never would have worked with, speaking to leaders that perhaps wouldn't have sat down unless we were able to like communicate why this was valuable. And so I think that kind of changed the way I was thinking about it. The value pyramid and like mapping stakeholders in that pyramid is the same thing. I had one internally about the teams internally that were going to need to be required to make the deal a reality. And then just finally the bit at the end about being like introspective and like looking back, it kind of kickstarted the whole process. Kind of came about because we were introspective, because I was thinking about where we've lost business and why we've lost that business. So I was thinking about it as like this is also a blueprint moving forward. If this opportunity didn't go ahead, why would we have lost it? What could we have done differently? What changes could we make? So I think it was truly my guide. The podcast where my like my daily commute every day, and then the guide was like on my computer from time to time when I'd had a tough call. I'd open up and see, okay, this is where we are in the deal. Maybe we should try and do a bit more discovery. Maybe we should figure out who the right people are.
Oh mate, honestly, you make
Very
it all
vindicated.
worth it.
Yeah,
And I'm actually, when you were saying that, I was like, oh, I should apologise for taking a break. Sorry for not being on your commute. And now, Jon, you get to listen to your dulcet tones on the tube deliver absolute, and I am not joking here, fire on how to close transformational and big deals. I think before we wrap up, Jack, unless you have one more question, I'd love to understand, like, and you probably heard us finish with this. What's your favourite sales memory?
Ooh, favorite sales memory. Does it have to be in this role, or does it kind of be
ever?
Ooh, ever. Yeah, so I guess favorite sales memory is so I used to sell kind of empty pop-up shops in and around central London. I'm a big sneakerhead. So I worked with like this creative agency on this really top secret brief that they wouldn't let me know about. So my favorite sales memory was I did this pop-up for IKEA and Virgil Abloh. And it was really cool in Covent Garden. And so in the end, they wouldn't tell me what the brief was, but I had to kind of communicate to the landlord that, this is what's going to be going on. So I had to find out the brief eventually. And then in return for, looking after them and making sure they got a great deal and they got into the venue early, I got early access. So I got to see this really cool receipt rug. And in the end, I didn't get anything apart from a really cool IKEA bag, but I use it from time to time to go to the gym. I think people look at me like I'm crazy, but that's my favorite sales memory because I get to carry it with me.
Amazing.
Love it, man. And one more question before we wrap up as well. Is there anything from this deal, one standout thing that you do now in future deals and from then that you're like, that was because of what happened in the deal that we just spoke about?
Yeah, that internal stakeholder management. Like I think you can prospect really hard, you can say all of the right things, you can prepare for a demo, you can do lots of discovery, but if you don't have the internal clout / internal network to make it happen, it's never going to get off the ground. So I think what I've changed now is after I do all of the things I'm supposed to do externally, I make sure that all the right teams are kind of geared. They're all ready to go. They're almost in the starting blocks. They're just ready for that gun sound to be told to run. That's kind of what I'm doing with all of my strategic ops now.
Love it.
Amazing.
Love the attention.
Thanks so much for joining us.
No worries.
Pleasure, mate.
MBD out. Wow, what an episode. As I reflect back on that recording, which we did a couple of days ago, I learned 7 really key things from Jon. We were really lucky to have him on. So let's recap what every AE should have been taking away from Jon's deal just then. Number 1, whale hunting actually works. Strategically target those accounts that previously evaluated but didn't buy, because they're going to be these tier 1s that you're going to make your year on. Number 2, champion cultivation takes a lot of time. Jon spent 4 months of monthly check-ins before a single intro into one of these accounts. Like, be consistent with your process. Number 3, always deliver value in every interaction to build credibility. When you're prepping for these calls you're having, ask yourself, what are you bringing to the table? What are you teaching this buyer on this call, rather than just coming in willy-nilly, so to say. Number 4, ask questions your contact won't know the answers to. It helps you multi-thread, and this is something that we've touched on No Big Deal and other episodes. Number 5, be the quarterback of your deal. Know exactly who you need internally and what you need from them, and keep updating them in a really succinct manner. Number 6, manage up effectively with consistent structured updates to keep leadership all aligned on your deal. You win and lose together. And finally, 7, internal stakeholder management is as crucial as external relationships that you're building. Remember, big deals don't close by themselves. They require patience, preparation, and the mindset. Until next time, this has been No Big Deal. Thank you for listening. Jack Nico and Jack Fox out. Tune into No Big Deal next week, where turning massive deals into reality is easy. Or we try and make it as easy as possible. Thanks for listening. Bye.